Well, good morning, and welcome to the Morning Report for June 7th, 2022. We appreciate you being here with us today. Thank you again. It's going to be a super busy day for me, so I wanted to get in here and see if I could do, kill two birds with one stone. Get the video done, get it up on Rumble, and maybe even YouTube this one, and then of course, get the audio podcast going. So, again, thank you. My name is Willie Lawson. The Morning Report is a production of FightbackMedia.com, FightbackMedia.com, and FightbackMediaTV.com. You can check out the audio and the video to this podcast on FightbackMedia.com. Oh, I trust that you are well. It's a lovely day. It's early. For me, it's like 7:45. It's a lovely day. It's a lovely day, and I just can't wait to get out in it. All right, let's go ahead and get it started. Our new press secretary, well, actually not our new press secretary, the president's new press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, who made sure that everybody knew. By the way, I wanted to say this to a specific set of people, that she was not African American, that she's Haitian. And a lot of us know what that means. Just because we got the same, color doesn't mean that we, are brothers. And it is something that we're going to talk about later, and that we've talked about with Urban Game Changers, is that there are a lot of people of dark people from the islands that do not associate with, or they almost disassociate themselves with African Americans, with black people here in America. And the vice president is one of them, and so is Karine Jean-Pierre. But that's something for y'all to chew on for later. The press secretary had a hard time justifying the president's use of the Defense Production Act to build solar panels. Now, the Defense Production Act is set up for wartime and emergencies, which is how you get Ford to build ventilators during COVID. It's how you get these companies to build tanks and jeeps. Jeep comes out of the Defense Production Act. This is how you get your industry turned over to a wartime industry to build the things you need for war. Planes, manufacturing ammunition and guns and the stuff you need for war. That's what the Defensive Production Act is all about. It is not about building solar panels. It just isn't. It just isn't about building solar panels. A reporter asked what emergency has prompted Joe Biden to invoke the Defensive Production Act to build solar panels. The press secretary says the president, when he takes the Defensive Production Act, is to make sure that he's delivering for the American people. Is that good enough? No, it's not good enough, because that's not an answer. Jean-Pierre justified the use of the DPA by falsely claiming there is a current electricity shortage that the panels can help alleviate. All right. Where is this electricity shortage? Here's what she says. The emergency that allows Biden to invoke the authority under the Tariff Act is a threat to the availability of sufficient electricity generation capacity to meet expected customer demand. Weak. Absolutely weak. Absolutely weak. The fact of the matter is that the aggressive the green aggressives have decided that they can use this to push their green agenda, and possibly and here's the problem. The problem is that now if there are a lot of these solar panels on the market in the defensive protection, produced by the DPA. Uh, First of all, we're not sure who's really producing these things, and what happens then is the companies that are the American companies that are doing this are hamstrung now, are hamstrung, and this really benefits the Chinese Communist Party. This benefits them. Doesn't benefit us. Benefits them. Um, Jackie Heinrich said during this press conference, are on solar panels. How is this not a gift to the Chinese solar manufacturers, many of whom operate with forced labor and are subsidized by the Chinese Communist Party? Of course, she doesn't answer the question. Our friend says this. This is about one country and one country alone. It's about the United States. Not an answer. Given the DPA is reserved for times of war and true emergencies, Jean-Pierre's explanation shows Biden is using the extreme measures to push the left's climate change agenda and force transition away from oil and gas. That's what this is all about. What it's all about. Please understand, that's what this is all about. I think that we get caught up a lot of times in things that are on the side, and we don't look into the core or the origination of where things ought to be. You know. Speaking of that, and the disassociation from African Americans, let's talk about Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris is leading another discussion on abortion. This time with faith leaders. Sound familiar? Who else did that? Margaret Sanger. Margaret Sanger met with whom? Met with a lot of the black pastors, because she knew is that the influence of the black pastors, especially at the time, was such that they could convince the other Negroes to do whatever they said to do. So all she had to do was, and she understood all she had to do was convince the black faith leaders, pastors, reverends, bishops, to go along with her birth contraception scheme, because it was going to, as they said, it was going to reduce the level of poverty and misery. It's also going to reduce the numbers. And she knew that if she could get the black pastors to go along, then she could accomplish her goal without anybody knowing. The idea was to make them think it was their idea. It was a good idea, and it was their idea. Now Kamala Harris is trying to do the very same thing. She is trying to get faith leaders, or especially black faith leaders, to try to convince women, black women especially, that this is a good thing, because there is nothing worse than being poor. Well, except being dead. That's worse. And it is, for me, it is such a heinous thing to try to get people to believe that that there's nothing worse in the world than being poor, even being dead. That murdering somebody, ripping a small child from limb to limb and sucking them out of their mother with a vacuum cleaner is preferable to that child being born into poverty and growing from it and leading their family out of poverty and leading their community out of poverty. That it is better just to give up early. Kill the child and give up early. I'm not sure that this is the progressive manner. This is not something that you know, and we've seen this time and time again. Many people born into poverty that have made it work, and made it work not for themselves, not just for themselves, but for many, many others. And we are glad we have them. Ben Carson comes to mind immediately. You know, a lot of these people were not born with silver spoons in their mouth. Not like unlike Kamala Harris, who had both of her parents, and her parents were well-to-do and well-off, and she was not born into poverty. So maybe there is an elitist thing or elitist thread that is being woven through all of this pro-abortion mess. Because these people, and I'm going to say it that way, these people couldn't possibly see that if you're poor, that you could survive, subsist, evolve, grow, win, because you're poor. Not like them. You're different than them. Golly, if I was poor, I would kill my baby. And they've convinced even some of you, that that's the thing to do. It's absolutely, it's heart-rendering, it's disgusting, it's angering, and we should push back hard against it at every single solitary turn. All right, the president has threatened. Help me, Jesus. Has threatened to take away school lunch money from schools that don't adhere to the trans agenda. The Biden administration has officially embraced the woke mob's push for making transgenderism completely, totally normal. By now, it shouldn't be a shock that President Biden is threatening to cut school funding if the schools refuse to adhere to the left's agenda. Biden's Department of Food and Nutrition Service, the agency within the USDA, announced that it will strip money specifically for lunches from schools who don't allow trans students to use the bathroom of their desired gender. Now, we went through some years back. North Carolina was one of those states that the school said, you know what, you have to use the bathroom and the locker room of your assigned gender. So if you've got a vagina, you've got to use this bathroom over here. If you've got a penis, you got to use this one over here. Not just because you think or believe or feel that although you have a penis, you can use this one too because that's what you feel like today. No, 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 no. Whatever is in your pants, that's what you have to use. Whatever under your skirt, that's what you have to use. Title IX says the school districts have to allow transgender boys into girls' locker rooms, showers, and sleeping quarters in order to keep federal funds for lunches, breakfast, and snacks. This is horrific. They are holding a gun to schools, especially poorer school districts. They're holding a gun to their head that says either you go along with what we say, or no food for your kids, huh? No less food for your kids. Which is the left way. Which is the leftist way. Either, if there's a man in the house, less money for your kids. Less money for your kids. No food stamp for your kids. Get that Negro out of the house. That was Johnson's War on the Poor. That was Johnson's War on the Poor. And the same system, the same methodology is being used on school districts right now, especially school districts that are suffering. And a lot of school districts are suffering due to COVID, and they're suffering due to COVID because people decided that they would keep their kids home. All this is going on in schools. More and more people are deciding to choose other ways to educate their kids. They're either keeping them home, or they're moving them to charter schools, or they're moving them to parochial or religious schools. And here in this district where I live, I believe, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, there were like 7,000 kids that were completely unaccounted for. 7,000 kids is a few schools. It's a few schools worth of kids that were completely unaccounted for. And this is in the 8th largest school district in the country that I'm sitting in right now. When you have that many kids just completely unaccounted for, completely unaccounted for, that could be like 7,000 kids could be something like 8 or 9 elementary schools. More than that. Maybe 20 elementary schools of kids completely unaccounted for because people kept them home or did something else with them educationally. So some of these school districts are suffering because of lack of FTE, thus lack of funding. Not because people aren't paying taxes, it's because people aren't sending their kids there anymore. And now the federal government's coming in and saying, if you don't do this, if you don't allow boys to be in girls' locker rooms, and that's what we're talking about. Let's not get off of what we're talking about. If you don't allow boys to use girls' locker rooms, if you don't allow boys to be in the girls' bathrooms, if you don't allow boys to be in the girls' locker rooms, if you don't allow girls to be in the boys' locker rooms, if you don't allow this madness, less food for you, cutting your lunch, taking your lunch money. Wow. Fight for Schools Executive Director Ian Pryor told Fox News that Biden is ultimately holding schools hostage with school lunch money that goes to feeding almost 30 million kids around the country. I honestly have no idea how providing food to children in schools is somehow connected to transgender policies. It isn't. It's a way to put a gun to their head, adding that Biden administration is using children as pawns in this social justice gender ideology game that they're playing. Pryor said to the White House, the White House is trying to use racial gender ideology by doing federal takeover of the national school systems. You'll do what we say. One of the things that should have gone away years ago was the Department of Education. It hasn't helped education and the United States at all. It's given the federal government strings to pull in education around the country, and it's made education less effective. Scores have not gone up in any way, shape, or form. Things have not been better. Has not gotten better. They have indeed gotten worse since the advent of the Department of Education. The Department of Energy, same story. EPA, same story. All of these agencies that showed up in the 60s and 70s that turned into these huge bureaucracies full of bureaucrats that are stretching their tentacles out in everything that we do. That's the expansion of government. They need to go away, and the Department of Education is one of them. However, Biden's ploy is receiving major pushback from Republican governors. Kristi Noem, a Republican from South Dakota, promised to take legal action if the administration tried to pull funding from her state schools. President Biden is holding lunch money from poor Americans hostage in pursuit of his radical agenda. He is insisting that we allow biological males to compete in school sports or else lose funding for SNAP or school lunch programs. South Dakota will continue to defend its basic fairness so that our girls can compete and achieve. I will remind President Biden that we have defeated him in litigation before, and we are ready to do so again. Mr. President, we'll see you in court. That was Kristi Noem. And I imagine he'll get pushback from places like Florida and Texas and other places. But he won't get pushback in New York. He won't get pushback in California. Wow. Not surprising, unfortunately. Not surprising. All right, this is a short version because, well, I couldn't stop it in the middle. Hey, listen. do me a favor. Do me a large solid. Um, a really good friend of mine is Christine Vasconcello at Bloomingdale's Flower Shop at www.bloomingdays.com. Please, if you are, especially if you're in the Tampa Bay area, make sure that if you order flowers, you order it from a local florist. And the premier local florist in this area is Bloomingdale's Flower Shop. They have been producing fantastic arrangements and bouquets of flowers and taking care of events since 1987. And you get to work directly with the owner, Christine Vasconcello. You get to work directly with the owner. And because she cares about what comes out of her shop. She cares about what comes out of the shop. She cares about your event. She doesn't become your florist. She becomes your friend. Bloomingdale's Flower shop at www.bloomingdays.com. Thank you ever so much. And we got to get out of here and make room for somebody else. So until we see you again, go out there and learn something, love somebody, and for goodness sakes, y'all take care of yourself. We'll see you when we see you. Bye-bye now.